Story number 1. Whispers from the Lake. It was the summer of 2001 when I, Mark, decided to travel with my girlfriend Lisa to the Texas suburbs for a much-needed break. Joining us was Alex, a journalist friend always in pursuit of a story, and his partner Sarah, an archaeologist with a penchant for local history. We were driving down the dimly lit road, with the windows down, the humid Texas air brushing our faces, when a chilling apparition appeared in front of our car. It was the faded figure of a woman, holding out her arms as if in warning. Startled, I swerved the car to avoid her, causing us to sideswipe a tree. The car came to a screeching halt. With the car now undrivable, we looked around for any nearby shelter. A few yards ahead was a faintly lit house that looked like an old forest home turned into a hotel, nestled near a tranquil lake. It was our only option. As night fell, the serenity of the lake was disrupted by eerie apparitions that seemed to emerge from the forest and the water. They whispered indistinctly and pointed toward the depths of the lake. Alex, with his journalistic instincts, was intrigued and began interviewing the caretaker of the forest home. The old man revealed a horrifying tale from decades past. He spoke of a terrible train crash that happened nearby, where an entire carriage plunged into the lake, causing the death of many, leaving their souls restless. Sarah, using her archaeological expertise, managed to locate an old newspaper clipping in the home's attic that reported the disaster. The piece revealed that a miscommunication on the tracks led the train to its watery grave, forever sealing the fate of its passengers. As the pieces of the puzzle came together, the hauntings grew more intense. The specters seemed to be reaching out, wanting to share their untold stories, making us the bearers of their tragic tales. Realizing that these spirits sought closure, Sarah suggested performing a ritual to offer them peace. We gathered by the lakeside, lighting candles and reciting prayers to guide the lost souls to the afterlife. As dawn broke, an eerie calm descended. The apparitions, once tormented, seemed pacified, and the forest home was once again serene. However, the trauma of that night left an indelible mark on our souls. Years later, as I recall those harrowing events, I'm reminded of the thin line between our world and the unknown. Our trip wasn't just a holiday, it was a journey into the heart of darkness, revealing the tormented soul's yearning for release. The Texas suburbs, with its haunting history, will forever remain a testament to the unresolved tales of the past. Story number 2. Echoes of the Hudson. I remember it vividly. 2002 was the year I'd never forget. My name is Jake, and together with my fiancée, Claire, we had planned a weekend getaway to the picturesque areas surrounding suburban New York. Accompanying us was Leonard, a history professor with a fascination for New York's past, and Diana, a local investigative journalist. Driving down a secluded road, the tranquil ambience was suddenly shattered when an image of a sunken-faced child materialized in front of our car. Instinctively, I swerved, avoiding the apparition but crashing into a signpost. Shaken, we found an old house by the lake, seemingly a makeshift hotel, offering shelter for the night. Little did we know, the hauntings had just begun. The night was alive with whispers. Disembodied voices echoed from the woods and silvery figures danced over the calm surface of the lake. It felt as though the forest had eyes, watching our every move. Leonard, ever the history buff, found an old diary in the house, detailing the sorrowful events of the past. It revealed a boat tragedy on the Hudson River in the 1920s, where a family picnic turned grim as a boat, overloaded with people, capsized, leaving no survivors. Diana, with her investigative prowess, began speaking with the locals. Rumors suggested that the very house we stayed in once belonged to a survivor who was supposed to be on that ill-fated boat, riddled with guilt for not being there to save his family. As the story unfolded, we realized these spirits were trapped in perpetual torment. Leonard believed that acknowledging their pain and the tragedy that befell them might grant them peace. Standing by the water's edge, with the moon casting long shadows, we paid our respects and offered a prayer. It was a plea, not just for the souls, but for our own sanity. The night receded without further incident, and as the first rays of the sun pierced through the trees, a heavy mist rolled in from the Hudson, blanketing our escape as we hurriedly left the haunted retreat. Now, years later, I often find myself thinking of that night. We went in search of solace and stumbled upon souls more restless than our own. The woods of suburban New York hide more than just trees. They conceal secrets and memories of a time long forgotten. Story number 3. Nightmares of Silverwood Lake. The year my perception of reality was forever changed. My name is Chris, and along with my sister, Naomi, we planned a trip to escape the buzz of Los Angeles. Little did we know, our short journey would bring us close to the pulse of the city's haunted past. With us were Edgar, a seasoned detective, and Marianne, a folklore researcher with a deep interest in urban legends. We were on a scenic drive, listening to Marianne narrate tales of old Hollywood when suddenly, the shadowy figure of a man in a 40s-style suit loomed in our path. Panicking, I swerved, narrowly avoiding the apparition but damaging the car in the process. We found ourselves outside a desolate house by Silverwood Lake. It was oddly welcoming despite its time-worn appearance. Deciding to stay there for the night was the first of our many mistakes. As the night deepened, spectral visions from different eras graced the perimeter of the house. Phantom silhouettes danced on the lake's shimmering surface, their mournful gazes forever fixated on the old home. Marianne recalled the story of a grand party in the 1940s, held at this very house, celebrating the success of a famous movie. Rumors had it that a massive fire broke out, trapping and claiming many lives. The event, however, was covered up to protect the reputation of influential attendees. Edgar, with his investigative intuition, dug out old police reports which pointed to foul play and conspiracies. It was believed that the fire was intentional, perhaps motivated by envy and rivalry so common in Hollywood's golden age. Realizing we were in the epicenter of their unfinished stories, we decided to hold a vigil, acknowledging the tragedy in the souls who perished that fateful night. Marianne led the ceremony, chanting and beckoning the spirits to share their truths. The night was long, filled with ethereal cries and revelations. We bore witness to the pain and horror of the departed. By dawn, the atmosphere had lightened, and a surreal calm enveloped Silverwood Lake. We packed up, vowing never to return, but to always remember the souls we had encountered. Now, years later, the echoes of that night haunt my dreams. The City of Angels, it turns out, is also a city of ghosts. And some stories, though hidden in the annals of time, demand to be heard. Story number 4. Specters of Lake Merced. The year 2004 still sends shivers down my spine. I'm Matthew, and I, along with my cousin Elaine, decided to explore the suburban outskirts of San Francisco. The allure of the city's history was compelling. On this particular journey, we had Sylvia, an anthropologist fascinated with the Bay Area's cultures, and Ryan, a retired firefighter who spent years battling blazes in the region. As we drove down a fog-covered path, a ghostly figure in an old miner's outfit appeared, causing me to swerve abruptly. The ghostly encounter led to our car getting damaged, leaving us stranded. Soon, a beacon in the mist emerged, a wooden house overlooking Lake Merced. Given the circumstances, we chose to rent it for the night, hoping for a peaceful rest. But the spirits of the area had other plans. Throughout the night, ethereal figures materialized on the lake's surface and roamed the nearby forest, their whispers forming a haunting cacophony. The setting was eerily reminiscent of tales from old San Francisco, a city built upon layers of stories and histories. Sylvia remembered folklore of miners during the gold rush era who had disappeared in these woods, supposedly having found a hidden treasure near the lake but never making it out. The legend was that their souls remained, eternally searching for an exit. Ryan, with his knowledge of local disasters, recalled a tragic event in the 1920s. A mine near Lake Merced had collapsed, leading to the death of numerous miners. Rumor had it that the mine was deliberately sabotaged by competitors. This event could very well explain the restless spirits we were encountering. With dawn hours away and the paranormal activities intensifying, we decided to confront these apparitions. Guided by Sylvia's expertise, we performed a ritual at the lake's edge, urging the spirits to let go of their worldly attachments and find peace. The hours felt endless, but as the first light of dawn broke, the spirits slowly faded into the fog, their whispers growing fainter until there was nothing but silence. When morning fully came, we left the haunted abode of Lake Merced, deeply affected by the night's events. Years have passed since that chilling encounter. I often find myself reflecting on that night, realizing that every city, even one as magnificent as San Francisco, has its dark tales and tormented spirits waiting for their stories to be acknowledged. Story number 5. Shadows of the Everglades. It's a year that never leaves me, no matter how much I try to outrun it. My name is Alex, and my girlfriend, Lila, and I had decided to explore the outskirts of Miami, hoping for an adventure. We were joined by Maria, an environmental scientist passionate about the Everglades, and Raphael, a local historian who loved to share tales of old Miami. As I was driving down a seemingly tranquil road, a sudden apparition of a woman in traditional Seminole attire materialized. Startled, I lost control, scraping our car against a tree. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but the vehicle was left in bad shape. We soon stumbled upon an old house, nestled in the woods by a serene lake. Given our situation, we decided to spend the night there. A decision we'd soon regret. As night fell, the air grew dense with tension. The water of the lake seemed to stir, with ghostly figures rising and wading through its shallow depths. Faint cries echoed through the forest, and the boundary between the living and the dead grew thin. Raphael whispered tales of an old Seminole village, which once thrived near this very lake but met a tragic end when settlers forcibly took over their land. It was said that many perished in a gruesome massacre, their spirits forever tied to this place. Maria, with a more scientific perspective, shared about environmental tragedies that took place here, with entire ecosystems being destroyed for urban development, causing significant loss of wildlife. Feeling trapped and desperate to make amends, we decided to hold a ceremony, combining Raphael's historical knowledge and Maria's environmental expertise. We acknowledged the pain of the land and its lost inhabitants, both human and animal, hoping to provide some peace and reconciliation. What followed was a surreal experience. The forest seemed to breathe with us, the lake shimmered in strange hues, and for a moment, the spirits stood still, looking right at us. When dawn arrived, the world around us returned to its natural rhythm. The forest, the lake, the spirits, they all seemed at peace. As we left the next morning, there was a palpable shift in the atmosphere. We had not only witnessed the residual pain of a tragic past, but had also played a part in its healing. Years have rolled on, but that night remains etched in my memory. Miami, for all its modern allure, is built on layers of history, both beautiful and tragic. And sometimes, the past demands to be acknowledged, even if in the form of restless spirits on a lonely road. Story number 6. Whispers of Wakiva. 2006 is a year imprinted in my memory like a scar that refuses to fade. I am Samuel, and my sister Anna and I were on a road trip, aiming to explore the hidden gems around Orlando. With us were Paul, an architect with an interest in Orlando's historic buildings, and Jenna, an investigative journalist who covered local mysteries. While driving down a secluded road, the ghastly image of a man, dripping water and covered in waterweeds, materialized in front of our vehicle. I slammed the brakes but lost control, causing our car to veer off, ending up with a dented bumper. Reeling from the shock, we sought refuge in a nearby house, quaintly perched by a serene lake, which we later learned was part of the Wakiva River system. Deciding to stay the night, we were unprepared for the spine-chilling events that would unfold. The tranquility of the evening was shattered by distant, mournful cries echoing from the lake and silhouettes of people aimlessly wandering the woods. The house became a vantage point to an eerie parade of the dead. Jenna recalled a story she'd covered. In the late 1800s, a steamboat transporting settlers had capsized in the Wakiva River. Many drowned, unable to escape the vessel's rapid descent into the watery depths. Paul noted the architecture of the house, reminiscent of the boarding houses of that era. Piecing it together, it seemed we were in a dwelling that might have once hosted the very souls that perished in the steamboat tragedy. Compelled to help, Jenna suggested conducting an impromptu seance. Using Paul's architectural sketches of the house as a conduit, we reached out, hoping to offer solace to the spirits. The atmosphere grew thick, almost suffocating. One by one, the spirits relayed their tales of unfinished business, regrets, and longing for the families they left behind. They were trapped, tethered to the place of their demise. With dawn approaching, Anna, with her soft-spoken nature, gently urged them to release their pain, to let go of the realm of the living. Miraculously, the restless murmurs faded, replaced by a harmonious tranquility. When morning light bathed the woods, the spectral apparitions were nowhere in sight. We left the house, our souls heavy with the weight of the stories we had been privy to. Today, when I reminisce about that fateful night near Orlando, I realize the delicate balance between the past and the present. Every place holds memories, some beautiful, some tragic, but all yearning to be remembered. Story number 7. Echoes of the Desert Lake. 2007, Las Vegas suburb. A place you wouldn't associate with chilling legends of the supernatural. But my friends and I were about to be thrown into a tale so haunting that it remains seared into my memory, long after the neon lights of Vegas dimmed in our rearview mirror. I, Alex, alongside my sister Elsie, had taken this trip to escape the hustle of city life. Our friends, Derek, a history professor, and Claire, a geologist, accompanied us. It was supposed to be a blend of leisure and light research. Night was settling in when the spectral figure of a woman, draped in tattered clothes, abruptly appeared in front of our car. I swerved to avoid her, causing minor damage to the car in the process. With a shaken spirit, we spotted a wooden sign pointing to a lakeside house hotel. The house, unlike the glitz of Vegas, held an ancient aura. The vast lake it overlooked shimmered mysteriously under the moonlight. The silence was almost palpable, save for the occasional cry of a distant bird. However, as darkness thickened, ethereal silhouettes began to emerge. The lake's surface rippled with reflections of figures that weren't there. The forest whispered tales of sorrow, and our sanctuary became the epicenter of a ghostly congregation. Derek remembered reading about a devastating flood in this region in the late 1800s. A dam had broken, submerging the entire settlement that once stood where the lake was now. Claire deduced that the geological shift might have trapped the spirits, tying them to the very place of their doom. Determined to uncover more, we scoured the house for clues. In the attic, Elsie stumbled upon a journal. It belonged to a woman named Lydia, who had lost her family in the flood. The entries detailed her heartbreak and how she wandered the roads, hoping to warn anyone of the impending doom she felt was cursed to relive. Claire suggested using the minerals she had, often used in geological readings, to conduct a makeshift seance. By the lake, with Derek narrating Lydia's tales from the journal, we reached out, aiming to bring peace to the souls. The atmosphere was electric. Lydia's spirit communicated, expressing her desire to be reunited with her family and free the other trapped souls. With Elsie's gentle guidance and the historical knowledge Derek provided, we managed to offer solace, urging the spirits to move on. The following morning, the house and lake seemed lighter. The spectral events of the night before felt like a distant dream. As we drove away, I caught a fleeting glimpse of Lydia's spirit on the road, a gentle smile gracing her lips, signaling her freedom and gratitude. Story number 8. Whispers of Waipahu. 2008, a suburb of Honolulu. Waipahu, usually known for its calm serenity, would soon introduce me and my group to an encounter that would reshape our belief in the spiritual realm. I, Jordan, had recently graduated and embarked on this Hawaiian adventure with my best friend, Maya. On our trip, we had the privilege of being joined by Kai, a local historian, and Lonnie, an ethnographer keen on Polynesian cultures. Driving amidst the lush greenery and calming presence of the Pacific, our journey took an eerie turn as a ghostly apparition appeared before us. In my attempt to avoid it, our car suffered minor damages, forcing us to halt. In search of shelter, we stumbled upon a secluded house hotel nestled beside a pristine lake. It seemed perfect, too perfect. As the sun sank, casting deep shadows upon the water, an unsettling energy gripped the air. Ghostly figures flitted around, their mournful wails echoing in the stillness. Kai began recounting tales from local lore. According to legends, the lake was a burial site after a catastrophic event years ago. A tribal disagreement had escalated into violence, leading to several deaths. Their restless spirits, he believed, still haunted the area. Lonnie's ethnographic studies provided more depth. She spoke of ancient rituals used to quell restless spirits, suggesting we perform one to bring peace to these lost souls. The forest echoed with chants as we sat in a circle, Lonnie leading. We asked the spirits for their stories, and slowly, through fleeting images and sensations, we began to understand their pain and their unfulfilled wishes. They sought acknowledgement and remembrance. Dawn was nearing when we finally felt a release, a lightness. We had connected with the spirits, acknowledging their tragic fate, and in return, they gifted us peace. The next day, as we resumed our journey, Maya noticed an old marker by the road which commemorated the lives lost in the tribal disagreement. We paid our respects, and I could swear I saw a contented spirit smiling back as we drove away. To this day, when I recall our night in Waipahu, it stands as a testament that understanding and compassion can bridge the living and the beyond. Story number 9. The Shadows of Silver Spring. 2009, just beyond the bustling streets of Washington, D.C., lies the quaint suburb of Silver Spring. My trip there with my sister, Rachel, was meant to be a peaceful respite from the city's hustle. We never imagined the journey would lead us through time and unveil chilling events from the past. Rachel and I were not new to road trips, but what began as a routine drive took a spine-tingling turn. An unsettling apparition materialized on the road, causing me to swerve. Though shaken, we were unharmed. But the car had seen better days. Needing shelter while the car was repaired, we stumbled upon a house hotel nestled beside a serene lake. It was charming, yet an aura of mystery surrounded it. At night, spectral figures emerged, their cries echoing across the lake. Enter Alex, the town's archivist, and Jamie, an investigative journalist, who had both been researching the area's past. Joining forces, we began to unravel a dark chapter in Silver Spring's history. Centuries ago, a devastating flood had submerged a significant portion of the town, drowning many of its residents. Their souls, trapped in a liminal space, wandered, seeking solace and closure. Over time, their agony intensified, causing them to manifest on the road, leading to numerous accidents. Alex showed us old newspapers and historical accounts detailing the flood, while Jamie shared interviews of witnesses who had encountered these lost souls. It became evident that to find peace, the spirits needed acknowledgement of their tragic demise. Drawing inspiration from rituals detailed in ancient manuscripts, we held a ceremony at the lake's edge. Lighting lanterns, we set them afloat, each symbolizing a departed soul. As dawn approached, the spectral figures gathered by the water, their once anguished expressions now peaceful. With gratitude in their eyes, they faded away, merging with the first light of day. The town of Silver Spring, though still echoing tales of the past, seemed a bit lighter, a tad more hopeful. And as Rachel and I set forth on our journey, a renewed respect for history and the ties binding the living and the departed filled our hearts. Story number 10. Whispers from Winnetka. The early summer of 2010 was meant to be a refreshing break. My wife, Lisa, and I decided to explore the suburbs of Chicago. Our getaway would soon become a passage into a spectral world that neither of us had anticipated. The day started under a cerulean sky, promising calm and tranquility. But, as I was driving, a ghostly apparition appeared. A child, clad in tattered clothes from another era, stood on the road. With a swift swerve, we narrowly avoided a collision. Our car, however, wasn't as fortunate, having suffered significant damage. We found ourselves stranded in a quiet part of Winnetka, drawn to a picturesque house hotel nestled beside a tranquil lake. But as darkness enveloped the surroundings, eerie figures began to emerge. On our first night, we met Laura, a local historian, and Mark, an investigative journalist. Both had been drawn to Winnetka due to legends of haunted roads and ghostly children. Laura regaled us with tales of a forgotten neighborhood schoolhouse which once stood proud, nurturing young minds. But, in a cruel twist of fate, a fire had engulfed the building, claiming many lives. The souls of those innocent children were said to be trapped in time, their pain echoing through the ages. Mark, with his modern tech gadgets, had been attempting to document these apparitions. Together, we resolved to delve deeper, hoping to find a way to release these trapped spirits. Old town records and newspaper clippings painted a haunting picture of that fateful day. Stories of children laughing and playing, only to be silenced forever by the inferno, moved us profoundly. Driven by compassion, we organized a candlelit vigil by the lake, marking the anniversary of the tragic fire. As we recited names and shared stories, the ghostly children began to appear. Their solemn faces lit up with recognition and gratitude, understanding that they weren't forgotten. As dawn broke, the spirits vanished, leaving behind a serenity that the lake hadn't seen for years. The road, once a place of sudden dread, now basked in the warmth of redemption. Leaving Winnetka, Lisa and I carried with us not just memories of an adventure, but a profound respect for the past and its lingering presence in the present. Story number 11. Echoes of Lexington. 2011 was supposed to be a year of rejuvenation, a fresh chapter for my fiancée, Sarah, and me. A scenic drive around the suburbs of Boston was on the cards. But destiny had a different, darker script for us. As I was driving, the ghostly visage of a revolutionary soldier stood steadfast in our path. Panic took over, and I swerved. The car skidded and rammed into a tree. Sarah and I were shaken but unharmed. The same couldn't be said for our car. In the thickening mist, we noticed a colonial-style house by the side of a still lake. An ornate sign read, "Mystic Lake Inn." We had no choice but to take shelter for the night. The innkeepers, an old historian named Samuel and an enthusiastic paranormal investigator named Ava, greeted us with a mix of surprise and familiarity. Over dinner, they shared tales of restless souls from the Revolutionary War that reportedly haunted the area. Samuel showed us a journal from the 1770s that he'd found. It told of a major but relatively unknown skirmish near the lake. Many lives were lost, and the defeated, never formally acknowledged or buried, supposedly roamed the area, searching for recognition. Ava had captured blurry images of spectral soldiers marching, eerie cries, and gunshots in the dead of night. Her equipment buzzed and whirred, revealing anomalies in temperature drops. That night, Sarah and I were awoken by the mournful tune of a fife. Peering out, we saw apparitions marching in formation around the lake, their ethereal blue glow shimmering on the water's surface. Drawn by a mix of fear and fascination, we decided to help Samuel and Ava in their quest. Together, we held a solemn ceremony, recognizing each fallen soldier by name from Samuel's records and giving them the respect they had long been denied. As we read out the names, the apparitions seemed to pause, turning toward us with expressions of gratitude. And then, with the first light of dawn, they vanished. Leaving Boston, Sarah and I felt a weight lift from our souls. We had not just witnessed history, we helped to heal its scars. The road, now silent, bore testimony to the peace that had been restored. Story number 12. The Haunting of Penn's Forest. In the summer of 2012, my wife Emily and I planned a road trip to explore the history-rich suburbs of Philadelphia. I never imagined that the journey would unfold the darkest chapter of my life. I was driving through a narrow wooded lane, reminiscing about our college days, when suddenly, an apparition of a young woman in colonial attire materialized before our vehicle. Terrified, I swerved to avoid her, causing our car to careen into a ditch. A quaint old house, secluded by the forest and adjacent to a serene lake, beckoned us. It was the Penn's Forest Inn. Given our circumstances, Emily and I decided to spend the night there. The inn was managed by Grace, a retired librarian, and her friend Robert, an archaeologist who had been excavating nearby sites. They warmly welcomed us, and we soon got talking. Over dinner, Grace narrated stories of restless spirits that had been sighted around the inn. She believed they were tied to an old Quaker settlement that once existed in the area but mysteriously vanished overnight. Robert had recently unearthed evidence of a massacre that took place in the late 1600s. The settlers had been slaughtered, their possessions plundered, and their homes burned down. The perpetrators remained a mystery. As he delved deeper into the chronicles, chilling events from that fateful night started to replay. That night, Emily and I were jolted awake by the sounds of ghostly wails and frantic whispers. Looking out, we saw specters of settlers, men, women, and children, wandering by the lake, their faces etched with sorrow. Intrigued and empathetic, we joined Grace and Robert to piece together the story. Delving into old records and Robert's findings, we concluded that the settlers were betrayed by someone they trusted. We decided to hold a vigil, offering our respects to the spirits and acknowledging the tragedy they endured. As Emily lit candles by the lake, I read out their names, expressing our sorrow for their untimely demise. The night deepened, and an overwhelming sense of peace descended. The spirits, no longer wandering aimlessly, congregated near the lake, nodding at us in silent gratitude before fading away. Our stay at the Penn's Forest ended, but the memories of that haunting summer night remained etched in our minds. We drove away, knowing we had played a part in liberating tormented souls, allowing them to finally rest in peace. Story number 13. Echoes of Elms Lake. The journey began as an idyllic drive through the lush peripheries of a Dallas suburb, but it would soon morph into a night imbued with inexplicable events that would forever haunt my psyche. In the autumn of 2013, my sister Laura and I embarked on a scenic road trip. I, Daniel, was driving through a serpentine road enveloped by dense foliage when a ghastly visage, a woman drenched and in despair, materialized before our car. Swerving in panic, our car skidded violently, coming to a jarring halt against a gnarled tree. Disoriented but unhurt, we sought refuge in a nearby dwelling, the Elms Lake house, and indiscreetly tucked away between the looming trees and a tranquil lake. It was there that we encountered Helen, a mild-mannered painter with a penchant for the supernatural, and Edward, a former historian now running the inn, each harboring tales of spirits tethered to this seemingly serene locale. The first night, amidst the stillness, spectral apparitions, mute and mournful, manifested around the lake and silently implored us through despairing gazes. Laura, petrified, clung to me, her eyes reflecting the frightful spectacles before us. Compelled by a mix of fear and curiosity, we aligned with Helen and Edward, aiming to unravel the history of these spectral presences. Through a patchwork of historical documents, eerie paintings, and spectral interactions, a story of tragedy, betrayal, and a fateful storm slowly surfaced. In the late 1800s, the Elms Lake community, then a prosperous trade hub, was decimated by a violent storm that emerged both suddenly and mysteriously. The town, blindsided and unprepared, sank beneath the aggressive torrents, lives helplessly swept away in the watery abyss. But Edward's ancestor was a key figure in a tragic subplot, a man who foresaw the catastrophe but was silenced by his peers to protect the town's booming economy. As Edward painfully relayed this, he revealed a century-old letter, written by his ancestor, detailing the imminent doom and his anguished pleas to evacuate the town. "Must we not let them rest? Must we not repent?" whispered Edward, his voice an amalgam of sorrow and guilt. Guided by Edward's remorse and the spectral implorations, we orchestrated a ceremony to honor the departed and acknowledge the ill-fated silence that preceded their demise. With Edward's confessions and our genuine petitions for peace, a transformation occurred. The spectral entities, once somber, conveyed silent gratitude through translucent smiles, dissipating into the abyss of the lake, an eerie calm enveloping the once haunted scape. As we left the Elms Lake house, it was not merely a departure from a physical locale, but a departure from a past that had entwined with our present, leaving us forever altered, the echoes of our spectral encounters lingering in the silent corridors of our memories. The spirits were set free, yet their stories, now interwoven with our own, would be recounted for generations, a cautionary tale of truth, consequence, and the eternal pursuit of redemption.